We have identified some very, very interesting anomalous type of aircraft.
Traffic is quite luminous and is exhibiting some non-ballistic motion, over.
Moved very rapidly at any speed or whether any direction it wanted to go. Fly could change and go to the right or the left or go crossways without hesitating a bit.
What do you think it was?
Well, if they call it a flying saucer, that's what it is.
EWA 517, do you want to report a UFO? Over. Negative. We don't want to report.
Look, it wasn't my worst Wednesday night.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Apocalypse Now. Welcome to Anomaly Now, straight out of Austin, Texas. I'm your host, Smiles Lewis. This is the weekly live news media roundup for the 501c3 nonprofit Anomaly Archives, headquartered, as I say, here in Austin, Texas. It's not really the apocalypse. It just feels, looks, smells, and tastes like it. Everything will be just fine, I'm sure. Well, thank you for joining us for this live edition or listening to the rebroadcast in my future. And I don't think you're going to be hearing this, but yes, my wonderful kitty cat is yowling in the background. It's okay, buddy. You can come in here. All right. You can find out more about the Anomaly Archives, the Scientific Anomaly Institute, over at our website, anomalyarchives.org. We have a Patreon where you can subscribe for free, or hey, give us money on a monthly basis. It really helps. We need your help. We need funds to get a new physical location. We have been without a physical home since February of 2021, the snowpocalypse 4 years ago. And it is the coldest night of this season here in Austin, and it's frighteningly familiar and reminiscent, but no freezing rain or snow yet, though I did see flurries this morning. Well, so one of the activities that I do on behalf of the Anomaly Archives is as a representative of the Anomaly Archives at the... Hi, kitty. We're in here. Come on in. Is to act as a representative for the Anomaly Archives as part of the Co-op Radio 91.7 FM Community Council. And I love working with those folks and that radio station. It's been an important part of my life for quite some time. And I think you should check it out over at coop.org. That's koop.org. And one of the celebration events that they celebrate annually and that I was in charge of this year was World Radio Day 2025, which occurs on February 13th, so last Thursday. And here is some of the information about World Radio. It was created in 2011 by UNESCO, the United Nations Education, Science, and Culture Organization, and then ratified into an official international holiday in 2012. And this year, the theme is radio and climate change. As many of you likely know, 2025 is a pivotal year as the Paris Agreement, from which our current president recently withdrew the United States from participation. Quote, if humanity is to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, greenhouse gas emissions must peak by that year, that's this year, at the latest before they begin to fall. Some of the many ways that UNESCO and the United Nations suggest we celebrate and or reflect on World Radio Day and climate change Know your information sources. Obviously, that's a thing we talk about a lot on this program. And consider how radio empowers people. Community radio helps marginalized voices express their views and participate in public discourse while providing access to information and promoting community participation and engagement. All of which reminds me of the wonderful quote from Jorge Alvarez, president of the Spanish Academy of Radio back in the day, who said, "Since its origins, radio has been shown to be the most useful medium of social communication for humanity. Radio waves go beyond borders and freely reach everybody and everywhere." And it's important to also to consider and reflect on protecting environmental journalists and journalists in general. By supporting the climate change reporting of radio journalists, we protect those investigating these environmental issues. Quote, UNESCO, in partnership with the International Federation of Journalists, IFJ, conducted a survey among reporters from 129 countries. Of the 905 journalists who took the survey, over 70% reported being subject to attacks, physical, etc. And of course, in the midst of this icy weather and 4-year anniversary of the snowpocalypse here in Austin, prepare for the storm. Think of all the ways that radio serves as first responder to crises and emergencies like severe weather, power outages, travel issues, natural disasters, and so much more. Many Texans have only to think back to February 2021 to remember how dependent on the electrical grid we are for survival and emergency communication. When the lights go out and the internet shuts down, an increasingly common occurrence, broadcast radio serves as an invaluable lifeline. Anyway, you can find that over at coop.org. And part of this celebration all month, there have been PSAs running. And this past Monday, I was scheduled to appear on the show of good friend and who I met through my former job running the Talking Book Program's volunteer recording studio. Mindy Reed is the host of Writing on the Air Mondays from 1:30 to 2. She does a great little show interviewing authors and writers, and she is no stranger to all of that in that she's been running a editing business for many years while also serving as a librarian for the Austin Public Library since retired. And at that also time was running the Recycled Reads organization that's kind of like the Austin Public Library's Half Price Books. And we had a great conversation. The irony, of course, of this was the morning that we were going to be doing, or rather the day this past Monday that we were doing this interview, that morning, Co-op Radio was knocked off the air by a very expensive piece of equipment being fried. They were able to still and still are transmitting over the internet, and they're waiting for that replacement part. But yes, the irony was not lost on us. So what other signs of the apocalypse are upon us? Well, the biggest news that you may have heard about was the launch of the new Declassification and Transparency Task Force by Rep. Ann Luna. This press conference announcing this was held on February 11th. They held a live press conference. If you go to the Anomaly-Archives.org, we have this page set up for this 2025 Declassification and Transparency Task Force announcement and development that lists the different people that have been from the Republicans set up. She did this press conference with James Comer, Republican of Kentucky, and they announced all the different people that are involved. They did repeatedly say that this is going to be a bipartisan effort. And of course, it comes on the heels of the president's executive directives declassifying the remaining JFK, RFK, and MLK files. And you can go and watch an audio enhanced clip recording of this press conference that we've put embedded into the page. Among the things that are going to be talked about, or rather investigated by this task force, are, as I say, the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and Dr. MLK Jr., but also what most of us were really looking at and expecting because of Luna's past involvement with the topic through other recent hearings, the UFO UAP subject, and she specifically described them as UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena. She did not use the anomalous phenomena acronym, and USOs, unidentified submerged objects. But the three other surprises were the addition of the Epstein client list, origins of COVID-19, and the 9/11 files, as she put it. All of that has, of course, interest to myself and many other people, I'm sure, but it's a little concerning to some, and myself included, that all these things are being lumped into this task force overview. It will be interesting to see where this goes. I was a little surprised to hear Rep. Luna saying how much she wants to be involved in the interviews of witnesses herself, which is good. She seems to be very hands-on. JFK presidential assassination in Dallas, and specifically, she kept mentioning witnesses from the hospital who she hopes to be able to get testimony from. To my knowledge, there are no living witnesses to that case really anymore. I am no JFK assassination expert, but I've read enough to know I'm pretty sure most everybody is passed away by now. And so several people have joked perhaps this task force is going to resort to a seance and a Ouija board for getting their information. But all kidding aside, I am curious to see where this goes. I do like the idea of bipartisan efforts in this direction. However, I have grave reservations given what has occurred, apocalyptically speaking, these past several weeks at the beginning of the second term of our current president. So, some of those things that give me pause are things that I commented in our last episode of Anomaly Now 2 weeks ago, where I talked about the very first press conference of the new administration, second term, when talking about the drones over New Jersey, it was described as being all approved flights, experimental and otherwise, approved by the FAA. There is a lot of pushback from this, including from, I believe, even Jeremy Corbell, who I've often been a critic of, but I have to applaud him for speaking out about that. But this interesting article over at Magic Without Tears with Marco Visconti, the article, A War of Worlds and Worldviews from Vatican Halls to Tech Billionaires, the Battlefield of UFO UAP Discourse. He published this on February 12th, and I'd just like to read a little bit of it and highly recommend you check out the rest of it. There was a time not too long ago when the public conversation around UFOs, often rebranded as UAP, seemed poised to cross party lines and ideological boundaries with ease. After all, the questions those mysterious lights and alleged encounters raise cut straight to the core of our shared curiosity. Are we alone? Could there be others out there, others who might be observing us or perhaps making contact under strange circumstances? But since the much-hyped disclosure of 2017, spurred in large part by the New York Times revelations of the Pentagon's ATIP program, what might have been a unifying moment too often devolved into partisan vitriol and culture war posturing. From Isengard to the Silicon Valley. It did not help that these were and still are dangerous and volatile socio-political times, full of anxiety about disinformation and institutional failures. Into this environment stepped individuals like Peter Thiel, a billionaire known for his contrarian libertarian streak, and Jesse Michaels, a media figure and podcast host who works for Thiel and amplifies many of his positions. Thiel's influence in tech, politics, and the cultural conversation has long been formidable. His venture capital decisions shape our digital future, and his data analytics company, Palantir, sits at the nexus of U.S. government contracts, intelligence, and private sector deals, a veritable symbol of state surveillance and big data ambition. The name Palantir itself comes from J.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, where these seeing stones could peer across great distances, though they often became tools of deception and manipulation. It's a particularly resonant piece of symbolism, especially for those of us who grew up watching how far-right extremists in my native Italy and beyond co-opted elements from sci-fi and fantasy lore to infiltrate youth subcultures. I wrote about this in a previous article discussing how certain political groups weaponize the imagery of orcs, elven hierarchies, and pseudo-medieval symbolism to recruit and radicalize. And he links to that article, Stemming the Tide of Fascism in a Culture. He continues, excuse me. In that context, Thiel's choice of a Tolkien reference for his surveillance-oriented company feels like more than just a whimsical nod to fantasy. It suggests a particular ethos about knowledge, power, and control. What does all this have to do with UFOs? Thiel and Michaels, by their own words in various podcasts and social media posts, have been vocal about seeing potential NHI, non-human intelligence, as quote-unquote evil or demonic. And I'll just say I have made my concerns known on this show and elsewhere about, as much as I enjoy most of the shows being put out by American Alchemy, Jesse Michaels, being aware of his deep connections to Thiel has made me very concerned. And I've seen others point out what this author is talking about, this seeming swing towards identifying everything as being good or evil and demons or angels. In other words, putting a very deep religious spin on it. The article continues, that perspective is not unique to them, of course. Evangelicals have been framing UFOs and angels or demons terminology for decades. What makes the Thiel-Michaels partnership significant is its ability to put money behind these views, funding think tanks, media channels, and influencers who weave together anti-government sentiment, Christian moral panic, and NHI conspiracy theories into an us versus them narrative. In this polarized worldview, genuine scientific or philosophical inquiry into UFO phenomena gets sidelined by an urgent suspicion that malevolent cosmic forces are either allied with us or at war with the so-called deep state. Through podcasts like Michael's American Alchemy or through the broader constellation of conservative media outlets and academics who adopt this posture, the conversation too often orbits around a simple question. Are the aliens, or whatever these entities might be, aligned with God or with Satan? Anyway, I recommend the rest of this article. He does go on to critique Diana Pasulka's involvement in this. She is part of those leading the charge, I think, in a good way, in so much as bringing the subject into the world of academia and putting it squarely in the hands of the humanities, and not just in the physical sciences in terms of physics and materialism. That said, I do think there are concerns about the way she might be being used if it's not some kind of part of her actual agenda or conscious or unconscious. I don't know her personally. I was honored to appear quoted in her book, American Cosmic, talking about synthetic synchronicity experiences, but and I generally like her work. But he does go on to give this example that I've seen others point to, that is Biblical UFOs and Occult NASA interview with Jesse Michaels featuring Carl Nell and Diana Pasulka, in which there are references again to these ideas that the intelligences behind this could be some kind of demons. And I'm not saying that's not possible. I just, all of this is, like I often hear critics say, it's replacing an unknown with an unknown. There's some other footnotes and good references there. But anyway, that's over at marcovisconti.substack.com. That's Marco, M-A-R-C-O, Visconti, V-I-S-C-O-N-T-I. Meanwhile, this other article paints a similar grave picture of where we're at. And it's less about UFOs and more political in terms of where we are at with the current presidency. But it absolutely ties in and brings to my attention something I don't know that I was aware of before. DailyGrail.com founder and writer Greg Taylor writes this article titled "The Bizarre 2014 Petition That Seems to Have Predicted America in 2025." In 2024, Google engineer Justine Tunney, Tunney, created what at the time seemed to be a bizarre petition on the official White House website. She called on then President Barack Obama to step down and for 3 specific things to take place. 1, retire all government employees with full pensions. 2, transfer administrative authority to the tech industry. 3, appoint Google Executive Chairman Eric Schmidt as CEO of America. While it made news, nobody took it seriously, and it was covered largely as some sort of crazy person's idea. However, fast forward 11 years to 2025, and that bizarre petition has become reality. 1, retire all government employees. Of course, this just goes on to reiterate what you probably already know if you haven't been living under a rock, that the current administration, with the help of the Muskinator, is purging the federal government and just generally wreaking havoc in an illegal, immoral, and unaccountable way, in my opinion. He goes on to give the example of 2, transfer administrative authority to the tech industry. The tech billionaires were given front row seats at the inauguration, signaling their importance to the administration, along with Musk's insane amount of illegal power to hack apart government agencies and unofficial advisors like Mark Andreessen. A large number of tech leaders are being appointed to be major players in Trump's administration. 3, appoint Google executive Eric Schmidt. Okay, it's not Eric Schmidt, but it's one of the other tech CEOs. As many have noted, Elon Musk currently seems to be acting as the CEO, if not president, of the United States. But what's the most important thing you can do to educate yourself is to learn about NRX, neo-reactionary movement, the neo-reactionaryism. Was the 24 petition some type of prophecy? Is it all just a massive coincidence? It's neither. It simply stated publicly a plan that major players in the tech industry have been working towards for over 15 years, after basically becoming cult members of the neo-reactionary movement, NRX, also referred to as the Dark Enlightenment. I wrote about it at length, warning about this threat before the election last year. See the technocratic conspiracy. But I realize it's rather a long essay, and many people don't read that kind of thing anymore. If the essay is too long for you, below is a shorter video that summarizes much of what I wrote about. And the link is there to this dark Gothic MAGA, how tech billionaires plan to destroy America. Was unaware of this young lady's YouTube channel. I watched the video. It jived with everything I'd already been looking at, and just gets into what, again, we said in our last Anomaly Now episode 2 weeks ago about the concerning issues surrounding the drone issue and these very tech billionaires who are getting so involved in the defense contract drone industry. From Thiel to Musk, to their family, friends, and brothers-in-law. Anyway, the great article. You can read more over at dailygrail.com. Headline: The Bizarre 2014 Petition That Seems to Have Predicted America in 2025. Now, kind of chiming in with all this, unfortunately, this is paywalled, so can't really quote anything from it. Haven't had the chance to read it because of that paywall, but it goes to something we've come back to again and again. Sean Kirkpatrick, the former head of Arrow, tasked with analyzing UFO, UAP related information in the government as part of his mandate. He has warned that belief is the enemy, which is the phrase Robert Anton Wilson used that I actually agree with, but he actually didn't quote Robert Anton Wilson. He just said, like this person and others, this article by Tony Milligan over at newscientist.com, why an increasing belief in alien visitations is a real world problem. Increasing numbers of people believe Earth has probably been visited by aliens. That's a societal problem, says Tony Milligan. Well, I don't disagree generally. I agree that belief is the enemy, and agnosticism is the best approach to all of these subjects. Not that you can't, have a gut feeling or an intuition or even faith that one belief system or reality tunnel, as Robert Anton Wilson would say, is the correct one. But also, like Robert Anton Wilson used to say, you should be able to put on paradigms like sets of glasses. Each paradigm is a worldview that can be very helpful and useful at a time, but it's just a way of looking at the world. It's not reality. The map is not the territory. The menu is not the meal. These are important but simple concepts that a lot of people have trouble with, perhaps even our president and those advising him. Now, one, in considering whether belief in aliens is a real danger or not, might want to consider things that have swirled around the world of Area 51 in Nevada, the aviation military test site that was the launch site for all the efforts in designing our stealth military technology and who knows what else, because it's super secret. Well, there does seem to be some good news in so much as Area 51 workers who've long had lawsuits pending seem to be making headway, or at least getting some press coverage again. No surprise that News Nation, the UFO news outlet that Joe Rogan and others, myself included, kind of look at a scan like, what's the deal there? Who's backing that? Could it be another tech billionaire? One wonders. I don't know who the funding is. But that is to say that this latest round of coverage by the media of these poor, deserving veterans who are suffering most likely because of their exposure to toxic chemicals and radiation that's all over that area because of where they were testing nuclear weapons and also doing open burn pits with exotic materials back in the 1990s. None of this is new, but this is new news coverage. So if you go to our website, you can find the file there on Area 51 worker lawsuits. And you may not know, but yes, back in January of 1996, U.S. President Bill Clinton signed a presidential determination exempting the Air Force's operating location near Groom Lake, Nevada, from any federal, state, interstate, or local hazardous or solid waste laws that might require disclosure of classified information concerning that location to unauthorized persons. Oh, gee, I wonder why he did that. Well, because there were lawsuits against the government for exposing their workers there to a variety of unknown probably toxic chemicals. March 6th, 1996, a citizen suit between former employees at Area 51 and the Department of Defense is filed. The plaintiffs, former employees, allege violations of Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, quote, in the storage, treatment, and disposal of hazardous waste at the operational location near Groom Lake. In July of that same year, a citizen suit between former employees at Area 51 and the Environmental Protection Agency is filed. The court determines that the administrator of the EPA, quote, completed her statutory duties with regard to the inspection and inventory of the operating location near Groom Lake, unquote. And it just went on and on. Every few years, there would be some news coverage about these poor workers. Now, I think they're possibly up to 400 workers now who are claiming that they have had negative health effects and are being refused disability and medical coverage because you didn't work there. It doesn't exist. Yes, there's a ton of headlines there going back to, as I said, 1996, 98. I thought these were in order. Yes, and yes, 2013, Area 51, the real cover-up from the Los Angeles Times. So August of 2013, during the 1990s, I represented Area 51 workers in 2 lawsuits. The author or interviewee goes on in that article there at the LA Times. Area 51 workers seek sees hope in Supreme Court ruling. This one also from the Las Vegas Review-Journal in March of 2015. Fast forward a year, February 2016, Las Vegas Review-Journal again, same author. Documents may help former Area 51 officer land settlement in toxic exposure case. Fast forward to August 2023, Daily Mail reports former Area 51 workers sue United States government, saying they developed cancer and heart issues after guarding F-117 stealth bomber during 1980s nuclear testing area. And then the next year, last year, two different articles, both from the Daily Mail, and actually this other one is from the timesnownews.com, which I'm less familiar with. Anyway, I am glad that they are getting some more coverage of this. I really hope they get the medical help that they need and some kind of compensation. But these are, this doesn't really fit into the previous article about belief. But you, of course, when you think about Area 51, of course, there was a few years ago the Storm Area 51 event that didn't really happen the way it was described, but people did show up and it did get a lot more attention for whatever that's worth. And a lot of that had to do with people's beliefs in the anomalousness of Area 51. Now, something that definitely is of more concern when it comes to belief in aliens and so forth. This from 8newsnow.com. Las Vegas man claims aliens told him to kill his father, report says. A man accused of killing his father told police that aliens had told him to kill his father and that he felt like he was on a different planet, quote unquote, according to the arrest report. Timothy Sarang La, 35, is facing a charge of murder with the use of a deadly weapon. He was taken into custody on the day of the killing, February 5th, in a Southwest Valley neighborhood. Las Vegas Metropolitan Police dispatched officers to the home near Blue Diamond Road and Decatur Boulevard after a, quote, hysterical woman, unquote, later identified as La's mother, called police to report her 73-year-old husband, Yoon Jin La, was unconscious and not breathing, a report said. This is just terrible. Unfortunately, this is not unusual. And I flash back to the zine I published back in the 1990s, ELF Infested Spaces, Elf Infested Spaces, Journal of Possible Paradigms, where we covered a lot of issues related to this. Mind control issues, the belief that a lot of different electromagnetic technologies can be used to harass people at the very least, and at most possibly exert some kind of psychological control over them. And whether or not any of that is true, what we also reported on were the case after case after case of so many people who, like this poor man apparently did, committed acts of violence and murder and mayhem at the behest of voices telling him to do something like that. I'm still here, kitty. Come on. You can come in, get on camera anytime. You ready for your close-up? What to me this also just really means is not so much that it's, oh no, more belief in aliens is going to cause more things like this. It's that we have always had issues with mental health crises, people experiencing mental health crises in this country and abroad. It's part of being human. And gee, it's one more thing that we need more empathy and money and support to help fix the problem of people going off the deep end and committing such terrible acts, in my humble opinion. Now, speaking of more beliefs, and how do you verify certain things? Last year we talked about how I was made aware that Carol Rosen had made claims that Werner von Braun had somehow technologically or psychically beamed a speech to her remotely so that she could present a lecture on his behalf. That back in the 1970s, he tasked her with this, and she was very concerned, hadn't had any kind of speaking experience on this scale, and yet she says it happened and doesn't explain how, but she alludes to the idea of psychotronic technologies and psychotronic weapons as being yet again one of the things that Werner von Braun, former Nazi, always a Nazi, told her as his assistant, that there would be these technologies and that they were the most dangerous technology. But of course, one of the things she's most famous for repeating is her claim that von Braun told her of an escalation of threats that would be alleged to be besetting humanity, that they would be rogue nations, terrorism, rocks from space, asteroids, and ultimately a faux staged fake alien threat, an alien invasion. These are the kinds of things that unfortunately have never been able to be proven. As far as I know, I've never seen any good evidence for this other than her claim of this. And unfortunately, a lot of the videos of her talking about this stuff over the years have disappeared, but there's still plenty out there. But why I bring this up again is because in the news, starting a few weeks ago, I started seeing articles like this one. Asteroids' odds of hitting Earth go up as Webb telescope is tasked with studying potential city killer. Yep, there have been various reports about this asteroid that apparently has a small chance of hitting Earth less than 8 years from now, and astronomers are enlisting the help of NASA's James Webb telescope to study it. Characterized as a potential city killer, the asteroid was first detected in December, and its odds of impacting our planet have fluctuated since then, according to NASA and the European Space Administration, or Agency, excuse me. But what it reminds me of, besides just the use of the possible escalation of threats, as described by Carol Rosen, is what I think I alluded to in 2 weeks ago's show, the last Anomaly-NOW show, in talking about Jeremy Corbell's appearance on, I think it's called UFO Revolution, or one of the other, I think it's UFO Revolution, which is the TMZ streaming on Tubi, I think Tubi TV, UFO series, in which Jeremy Corbell talks about his anger over the way things unfolded with the Immaculate Constellation revelations during the recent hearings, but his claim that he believes there is going to be some kind of fake alien threat, that he's seen evidence that this is part of a plan, and that there's going to be some object described as heading our way and maneuvering. And this all ties in perhaps with the rampant rumors for most of the last half of 2024 that dealt with this idea that the one of these telescopes had seen an object heading towards Earth, and that it seemed to be exhibiting intelligent control. And so I wonder if one were to speculate about this escalation of hypothesis, maybe they would hedge their bets, and instead of just going one and then another, let's just combine them. Like the whole Oumuamua object that came through our solar system and caused all kinds of controversy and skeptical speculation about the possibility that it was some advanced aircraft because of its anomalous characteristics, that perhaps it was an alien piece of technology. So anyway, all speculation, just the facts as they are being reported, such as they are. Now, we've also talked about in previous shows rumors that that Werner von Braun was also at the Roswell crash site, and we reported on various sources for that, ranging from these fellows, who are their names? Russ Hammerly and Robert Trundle, who I believe were reporting on the claims made by this very individual, Clark C. McClelland, an apparent astronaut. And we talked about that before. We finally created a file for him over on the website, on the Anomaly Archives website, for McClelland. Clark was sad to discover in doing this that he passed away in April of 2021. He had created a blog, or had somebody created a blog for him, which is at clarkcmcclelland.wordpress.com, as well as a YouTube channel where there are only 3 videos, and they are just 3 like this, where he is speaking directly into a low-grade webcam and giving some information about his anomalous experiences. I believe he claims to have seen an alien, and claims, I believe, that von Braun specifically told him that he had been to the Roswell crash site. Not 100% on all of this, but the information that you can follow for yourself there. Of course, this all started when Dr. Pippa Malmgren was giving a speech at the Space Race Geopolitics and Quest for Ultra-Terrestrial Life. Or rather, that was her presentation at this summit event. And towards the end of which, or partway through, she mentions this idea that von Braun was there. And this just does not seem to be likely or provable. But again, we have this man making these claims. And as always, we want to preserve his information as best we can. Over on his old blog are things like this photograph of him with Bob Lazar, and him being quoted as far back as, I believe, 1982. Interestingly enough, by William Nell, whom I'm assuming was the Bill Nell, the infamous discredited ufologist who I interviewed many years ago, right around the time that he was outed as being quite the phony. So again, so many of these things need to be taken with a grain of salt. Meanwhile, we have Clark McClelland's own article about his claim that von Braun was at Roswell, and we've reproduced that down on the page as well. So you can go and check that out. And it allegedly has this supposed autographed photograph that was signed by von Braun, and that's Clark says that's his head peeking behind this woman's head there. Who knows? I don't know. Again, keeping with this game of telephone and myth making and storytelling, this article from unknowncountry.com, that's Whitley Strieber's website. A long lost interview details Albert Einstein's involvement with the Roswell UFO crash. This rang some bells. I don't know that I really was that familiar with this claim or story before, but yes, apparently back in the early 90s. Yeah, here we go. So we have a website for this claimant, Shirley Wright. Quote, in a 1993 taped confession never before made public, Albert Einstein's assistant in the summer of 1947 made the stunning admission that she and the professor were flown to Roswell, New Mexico under government direction and examined the debris and bodies resulting from the crash of an extraterrestrial vehicle. Again, can this be verified? It has not been so far. Not even whether Einstein made a trip to New Mexico. But of course, it would all be secret, so who knows? But you can hear her audio interview, or at least part of it. Some of the tapes appear to have been lost by the person who had them in their possession, but at least what has been found has been made available in multiple places on ye old internet. Now, moving along to more UFO stuff. This one being a recent sighting. KOCO.com. That's Colorado, excuse me, Oklahoma news station. Reports on Oklahoma City man makes unusual sky sighting. More questions than answers remain. With so many things flying around in the sky, it's hard to tell what you're seeing. Sometimes the stars, satellites, and aircraft take up the night sky. I'd like to go ahead and play these videos here. I have them ready to go, I think. And here is the first one. This is about just under 3 minutes long.
I don't hear anything, and something's moving in erratic ways. It's in the shape of a jelly bean, but the interior was like plasma. It was just going like this, you know.
Chris Frederick has been a teacher for over 2 decades, and he currently works for a metro area school district. He showed us this video from January 25th. He's in his driveway off Northwest 21st in the Gatewood district. He said it all started that night when his wife wanted to go to Brahms, so they walked out to their car. But after a few minutes, neighbors were calling each other.
He started calling neighbors, and before long we were all standing out in the street and had our phones out.
Chris has been a drone pilot for about 10 years. He started working with them when he and his wife were realtors in Ardmore several years ago. He fired it up and attempted to fly his drone to get a better look at the object.
The sky at night, you have to have aviation lights or it's not legal.
But strange things started happening.
My controller talks to me, and it said unable to take off, electromagnetic interference.
After he recalibrated a few times, he eventually got it in the air and took these pictures of the object, which he estimates is around 1,500 feet off the ground. His drone was at about 400 feet when he took the pictures.
It concerns me that something was up there at night at that altitude that could have been a hazard.
He said his video function wouldn't work, which was odd. And there was something else. Only about 4 minutes and 18 seconds of flight time.
It had a fresh battery in it. It has a 35-minute flight life. And as soon as I took those 3 pics, my controller said a low battery, return to home.
Chris and his wife kept seeing that object for about 4 hours that night. We showed his pictures and videos to experts at OU for a second opinion.
What it is, I don't know, right? But I think I would approach this question as what is it likely to be, right? So that's where I'm coming from.
Professor Killick teaches astrophysics and cosmology at the university.
From the Plaza District, it's south of them because we can see the Orion constellation in the background, so we know their point of view.
He acknowledged the object looks strange, but ultimately, it's likely it's just another drone in the sky.
I could see a red streak. Now, I don't know if it's because, I could imagine if it's a long exposure, I don't know if it is. I don't know how long the exposure was, but, you know, a drone could have a red light on top of it, right? I mean, our planes have red lights on them.
We took a look at the metadata, or digital picture information of the drone pictures. You can take a look at that info for all the images right here in Oklahoma City. Jason Berger, KOCO 5 News.
Now, I went ahead and, since I didn't see any threads about this topic over at McWest's metabunk.org forums, I started a thread there and quickly got some suggestions. Now, I will say, you know, it's the issue of electromagnetic interference could have nothing to do with the object. And his estimate of the height of the object being 1,500 feet, you know, hard to say. But there you go. But yeah, McWest and others have chimed in, and some people have even, I think, found the location of the person's house and noted that this could be in the direction of or and over the Oklahoma State Fairgrounds, which might be of note. Somebody pointed out that there had already been a 2017 UFO video over those same Oklahoma State Fairgrounds, though the description of that video contradicts that. But what seems to be the predominant theory emerging? Somebody flying a night kite, a kite at night. I think this seems quite possible. And just real quick, well, so here's pictures of people flying kites in the daytime. Let's see. And all this reminded me of something I actually had seen sometime before, which was when I was looking for information on the New Jersey drone flap. There was an interesting video I had seen, which I then posted sometime shortly later down here. And as it turns out, Oklahoma State and Toyota have some kind of kite project going on in Oklahoma, though it seems highly unlikely that this would be them doing this at night. So I found this video: New Jersey mystery drone recovered after crash on beach. Cute video, thumbnail image there of some glowing green object that they've obscured with a question mark and shield. But what's interesting is at about 3.5 minutes into that video, what it turns out is they've created a kite with lights on it that they are trying to hoax UFO sightings and to as a possible explanation for some of the New Jersey drone sightings, which, it's all in good fun, right? But some of the interesting things that came out of that is them making me aware of the FAA's Part 100 regulations, which include that night kite flying has to be restricted to under 500 feet. So that if his 1,500 feet guesstimate is correct, accurate, then it's above the 500-foot ceiling, and not within 5 miles of an active airport, which this I think is just inside, or maybe I think it's in some of the posts I've seen about this, it's described as being relatively close to an airfield. And also that markers, lights, are supposed to be placed every 50 feet along the string. Now, bear in mind all that. Now, another poster in the forum noticed that there is somebody in Reddit had posted this footage, and in fact they posted a little extended version of it, which I will put here. Hold on, I'm gonna overlay this. There's some other close-up videos on some of the pages that have where you can kind of see what's described as energy coming out of it, but maybe it's a tail attached that's not the string, but a tail that's flailing around, and so that makes one think possibly of these other explanations. But what I also found really interesting was, okay, so this poster, Jehoseph, Jehoseph, posted this in at least 2 or 3 different Reddit forums and posted slightly different things in each forum. But when you research who that person is, and not trying to dox anybody, this is all public. Oh, here you can really see this kind of weird tail behind it there. But where in this video, oh yes, what the thread is: Oklahoma witness to UAP with trail. But the poster is known as Seph, S-E-P-H, or Jehoshaph, or Seph Divine, and is with Enigma Labs. Enigma Labs is one of these possibly spooked up, possibly Peter Thiel funded UFO, UAP technology companies. So Seph works for them, or apparently, quote, developing the Enigma Labs collective and ambassador core team to help push disclosure forward. If you want to get involved or check out what Enigma Labs is doing, look us up in the App Store. And sure enough, as I looked around, I found that this fellow Seph has been posting about this all over social media and Facebook, Twitter X, and multiple Reddit forums. He does state that he's been in contact, or they've been in contact with Frederick, the man we saw in the video, who is the witness, and that he's also reported his sighting to MUFON as well as Enigma Labs. It's possible also that this Jehoshaph fellow may also work for the Saul Foundation. That's unclear. On his personal Facebook page, he links to his own domain name that redirects to his Twitter X account, and elsewhere he does say that he works for Enigma Labs, but he also includes thesaulfoundation.org as the among his websites or websites he endorses or suggests. So interesting nonetheless. Well, it's probably just a kite. Who cares? We'll see if anything comes of that. We'll see. But if you go to the Enigma Labs website, there doesn't appear to be a way to really search the data very well. I think they intend for you to use their iOS app. There's not yet an Android version. And their Oklahoma sightings page loads a random 6 different reports with video, none of which are that I've been able to see this particular case. So if it doesn't appear that they've made that case public, if they are in fact receiving the information from the witness named Frederick. But oops. And so like I said, this fellow, his website, Seph Divine, and there is what I was saying, where he lists the Saul Foundation and his website, and he has over on the New Jersey Mystery Drones, Let's Solve It public UFO UAP group, drone group, excuse me. That's where he's posted more information about that. So he's been very public about this. And then there is his ex Twitter page. Enigma Labs is pioneering UAP research. All right. Well, as we round out the show, 3 more quick articles that are not UFO related. Yay. Ley Lines and the Allure of Imposing Order on History's Chaos by Colin Dickey. This one over at atlasobscura.com. It's a fun read. It's a nice lengthy article exploring the world of ley lines. The most important thing that they leave out, in my opinion, is talking about the work of Paul Devereaux, the Earthlights researcher, wherein he has done some great investigation and reporting on ley lines as spirit paths, giving you a real good background context as to why ancient indigenous peoples seemed so focused on maintaining long, straight lines and why they may have become associated, as this article talks about, but not drawing the connection that Paul Devereaux did, of this idea that there are lines of power somehow. And this article does go into a lot of great examples of how this has worked its way into culture and popular culture, including the Ghostbusters movie franchise. But like I say, the most important thing it leaves out is a reference to this important research of Paul Devereaux, which I hope to put on the website soon. He wrote some good articles for Fortean Times years ago. Anyway, that one's over at atlasobscura.com. Then shifting gears again completely over at theguardian.com. Many birds of paradise species emit light through their plumage, study finds. Researchers found that most birds of paradise are biofluorescent, meaning they absorb light through their bodies. Birds of paradise are known for their bright and colorful plumage, but it turns out they are even more dazzling than previously thought. Researchers have found that 37 of the 45 species show biofluorescence. In other words, patches of their plumage or other body parts absorb UV or blue light and emit light at lower frequencies. Quote, at a minimum, it would make these biofluorescent areas brighter. A yellow feather may be more green-yellow. A white feather may be brighter and slightly more green-yellow, said Dr. Renee Martin from the American Museum of Natural History in New York, who was the first author of the study. Published in the journal Royal Society Open Science, Martin and colleagues reported how they studied preserved specimens of each bird of paradise species held in ornithology collection at the American Museum of Natural History. Again, there's more about that. It's not a very lengthy article, but I just really liked seeing and hearing something about that. Meanwhile, a deeply thought-provoking article over at popularmechanics.com. Your consciousness can reach back in time to shape the past, a new theory suggests. Cue Eric Wargo. Basically, it's just talking about physics and what, you can sum up in the idea that time doesn't flow, it just is. Does this mean that we are all predestined and that there is no free will? Or does it mean that we can affect the past as much as we can affect the future? This idea suggested here is that we can literally send ripples, send thoughts and information back through time to ourselves and slightly change our present and future. Let's get on that, folks. Let's get out of this. Let's get out of this very strange, bizarro world timeline. Stat. Okay, well, that's going to be it. Thank you all for everything. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.